Ai ko Adrian Rafi.
Tēnā koe e te māngai o te whare o te rā, tēnā tātou katoa. Well, this has been an interesting discussion or debate tonight. We've heard about he aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Well, Mr. Speaker, if that was correct, then why is it that the New Zealand Principals Association in their submission to the Select Committee says the following? On the surface, they might be described as a collection of ill-conceived, baseless changes which lack any intelligent rationale. They might otherwise be described as changes without openly expressed rationale, yet intended to enable further expansion of certain policies and directions. That's coming from one of the most important education organisations in our country. And that's what they've got to say about it. So why is it then, if we can quote such whakatauki in this House, that we don't uphold it and listen to this New Zealand Principals Federation? Why is that? Why don't we listen also to their second, their supplementary submission, where they say they haven't had the opportunity to consult widely amongst principals because there was only a 2-week period for submissions on the supplementary order paper. Now, we've heard from other members, and I support what the member Tracy Martin had to say on the process. It was totally inappropriate for the government majority members to try to stop this consultation. And so I ask the question again, if people are so important, why are we not giving them enough time to consult with their constituents so that they can make an more effective and widely consulted on submission to the Select Committee? We might actually have better outcomes if we use better processes. So I pose that question for the House to consider. Sir, not only the Principals Federation, but others as well that submitted. There were many submissions on this. Of course, only those submitters were given were advised personally or by letter that there was another part to this legislation that had not been considered by the Select Committee or given the opportunity by organisations to make submissions on. Within that, sir, was the main issue was around trainee teachers. Now, and I ask the question again, he aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Well, what about the children that are in front of those trainee teachers? Are we putting them front and centre of this discussion? From my point of view, no, we're not. We are putting other dynamics front and centre in that discussion. And I go back to what the Principals Federation has said, that it is to enable the expansion of certain policies and direction. I also ask about the charter schools because I remember reading quite some, when charter schools were first proposed. I think what we've got is quite different from what was even being proposed back then. But that is one of the areas that has been, in this bill, sir, a policy and direction that is being expanded. So now tertiary institutes are able to sponsor charter schools. And you've got to ask yourself, I've got to ask myself, in reading through all of these things, because we haven't been given a rationale, as a number of submitters have pointed out, as to the why we are taking this overall direction through this bill. And I think that these changes collectively do exactly what the New Zealand Principals Federation say they do. I think this, in opposing this bill, we are quite right to oppose this bill. It takes New Zealand down a track in terms of education, and actually not only education, but let's look at the principals managing more than one school. Principals are seen as a professional leader of their schools. Not only that, quite often they're the leader of one of the leaders of their community. Now, they're required to have good relationships with their families, with iwi, with whānau, with a number of groups within their communities. And under this bill, they'll be expected to do that perhaps amongst 3 or 4 communities. Now, that kind of tells me that within each of their communities, they're only going to get part of the attention of that one principal. We have to ask again, what does that do to small communities? What does that do across a number of communities? Well, I think that diminishes the role of their role as professional leader, not only of their school, but also leadership roles within their community. I also question, as a number of submitters did, is there really a need for this? Are we fixing something that doesn't really exist? As others have pointed out, there already exists opportunity for principals to manage more than one school. So why are we going down this track? And I think, again, it's to perpetuate and fulfill the expansion of certain policies, which yeah, okay then, that absolutely, government should do that, but they should tell the country what they're doing, not doing it by stealth, by making several changes within a bill like this and not actually say what the overall effect to the education system and our society is going to be. That is a fundamental issue around what's happening in this bill, and I suggest that the Minister and members opposite actually go and read properly the submissions, because they're really serious ones. And I think we do both the New Zealand public and the submitters an injustice by not taking seriously their submissions on this bill. Sir, I agree with the points made about opening schools, being able to alter school hours. That'd be great if you can alter all the bus timetables as well to fulfil, say, particularly in a provincial area where school children catch buses to schools. That would be great as well. So I'm not convinced. And again, some of the submissions that I sat in on, I heard the concerns around such things as families that have children that go to a number of different schools and trying to align all of those along with extracurricular activities, along with all the other issues that families have to cope with. There's a lot of families out there that are trying to cope with poverty. Now, these changes don't address or don't help them. In fact, they'll probably make it more difficult for children to attend school if their siblings are attending other schools that have different hours. So, we can make fun of what I'm saying, but I'm saying to the House that this House needs to consider more carefully these issues. Nō reira, Mr. Speaker, it gives me no pleasure at all, actually, to be standing speaking on this bill. We could be speaking on much better legislation than what we have in front of us. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa.
I call Stuart Smith.
Thank you, Mr.